I've been involved for probably over 30 years. My father-in-law before me was the president, and you just kind of inherit these jobs. I'm Judy Fitzpatrick, and I'm president of the Wood Mountain Historical Society right here at Wood Mountain. We're at the very south end of the province. We're 30 miles from the Montana border.
Some people say we're southwestern, some say south central. We're kind of smack dab east to west. The name Wood Mountain actually applies to lots of different things in our community. Here, the regional park is called Wood Mountain. The old post, the old Northwest Mounted Police post, was called Wood Mountain. There's the town of Wood Mountain, and then there's the Wood Mountain Lakota First Nation, and there. It's also obviously called Wood Mountain. So even though we're small, we have lots of different pieces that make up the Wood Mountain community. People have been attracted to this area for millennia. There's always been people living here. Many, many hundreds of years ago, it was kind of an oasis in the prairie. People a long time ago would come here for bison, but also later on horse herds, and then later obviously cattle ranching. It wasn't readily settled actually by homesteaders and settlers like we think about in most of Saskatchewan or the prairies. Typically it was a lot of Indigenous folks, traders, and ranchers in the early years, and the Northwest Mounted Police. Settlers didn't come here until a little bit later in larger numbers to try to farm. The name Wood Mountain comes from the Métis or Michif word Montagne des Bois, which literally means mountain of wood. And that's what the Métis called their wintering camp here out in these hills. This was one of their spots that they would stop to hunt buffalo and stay over the winters before returning to Red River. We call these hills that run from the Frenchman Valley in the west to the Big Muddy, we call that the Wood Mountain Uplands. So it's really this larger geographical area, and the Wood Mountain community now just happens to be kind of like the remnants of that earlier history, I suppose.
Back in 1873, the Boundary Commission set up a post here. And so when the Northwest Mounted Police came west in 1874, they purchased the buildings from the Boundary Commission. We are one of the very first Northwest Mounted Police posts that was ever in Saskatchewan. The Northwest Mounted Police started our rodeo celebrating Dominion Day. We keep the records for the Wood Mountain Stampede, and the Stampede's been going for over 100 years. Right in the same spot it was held back in 1890. In 1968, a group of individuals decided to put together a history book, and it was called They Came to Wood Mountain. And after that, they had all of these stories and some pictures, and they thought we should house them somewhere. So in 1975, they organized and had the first opening of this museum.
Typically a tour looks like a guided tour of the museum here, the rodeo room and the ranch room where we're now. Then we move outside to the Métis Adobe House and the Heritage House, which showcases some Ukrainian, Romanian, and Serbian homesteader history. And then we end the tour on Sitting Bull Hill, is what we call it, and there's a monument up there dedicated to him. Chief Sitting Bull gets a lot of coverage, as you can imagine. He's pretty well known. In Lakota, his name is Tapranka Yautake. He made his way up to Wood Mountain after Little Bighorn and arrived in 1877. The Battle of Bighorn was a major battle between the U.S. cavalry and the Lakota and their allies in what is now southern Montana. This area in what's now southern Saskatchewan, but also into Montana, was on the fringes of like Lakota Tamakoche, is how we say it, Lakota country, but was well known to Lakota people like Chief Sitting Bull, who was at the battle, was here earlier in the 1870s to trade with Métis people, for example. After the battle, they knew these areas, these lands, and they came north to them to find refuge from the American government and military that was pursuing them. So about 5,000 Lakota people, my family included, came to what's now Wood Mountain to find safety and refuge. In the early days of Wood Mountain history, a lot of Lakota people had it really rough. The treaty negotiations in the States were really difficult, and the relationship with the American government was not good. But Lakota people were really trying to establish their own feet on the ground, I guess, in a way that hadn't happened before and find their place in a really changing environment. So there was, a lot of tension, but there was a lot of intermarriage, for example. That's how my family got to be here. Quite a few marriages between Lakota women and Northwest Mounted Police. And later, those were kind of the early ranching families as well. For especially those families that had Lakota kin relations, horses were very culturally important, and the women had a lot of knowledge about the landscape and how to keep horses, for example, and they passed that on to their settler husbands and families too. It was a lifestyle, I think, that melded Lakota cultural understandings and relationships with land and animals with kind of the ranching mindset of some of these early settlers in the area too.
We as a family put on a saddle bronc school here at Wood Mountain for 22 years. I have 3 sons that rode saddle bronc. 2 of them were champions in CCA, and they both got their education through riding saddle broncs. It's a long history we have. It is important to preserve the history of Wood Mountain. We're one of the earliest settlements in Northwest Territories. We've been here a long time, and we're one of the most beautiful parts of Saskatchewan there is. I'm passionate about ranching because it's part of our culture, it's part of our life. It's been in our family for over 5 generations, and it's an honor to pass it on.
Ranching, especially in the southwest of the province, is much more suited to the landscape. But we have to understand that comes at a price, because the bison eradication made it possible for cattle in huge numbers in these areas too. I think it's important to record and also share those things so that we, number one, as a community, can understand, I guess, what connects us and why this place is important. It really is about the place. It's the importance of this landscape and this place that so many people have called home for many, many years. I think if we can take a small role in helping to share that and also to pass that on, I think we've done our mission. If you want to come down to the Wood Mountain Rodeo Ranch Museum, you can visit between May and September. We're open 7 days a week, 9:30 till 5:30. You can also visit our website at woodmountainrodeoranchmuseum.org, and you can find just basic information about how to plan your visit.
We're always open to have visitors come and see us and learn about our history here, and we welcome all of them.
We can't wait for you to come visit, come learn about our history.
If you have program ideas you'd like to see on maxTV Local, let us know at SaskTel.com/local.